Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel, Cocktails and Rocktails with me, Notorious Groupie, Allison Rouse. Really great to see everybody again and just really be experiencing all the awesome friendships and loves and people that I get to meet, the questions, the curiosity, all the fun we're having together. Thank you so much, guys, as always. And for those of you just stumbling on, I am a Notorious Groupie, the longest running groupie in rock and roll history and part of rock and roll history. And I'm also the author of We've Got Tonight, The Life and Times of Notorious Groupie, where you can find my book, my merchandise, link to everything is down in the description. So hit it up, go down like it was the back lounge of a tour bus in the 80s. But today we're not going into the 80s. On today's Cocktails and Rocktails, we're going to talk about a few different experiences of living in Seattle the second time. Because I lived in Seattle twice. The first time while grunge was happening, and I was at the show where Alice in Chains got signed. This is Mother Love Bone was the only band signed at the time. But I was also there for kind of, not the end of grunge, but kind of the end of grunge, because I had just moved there when Kurt Cobain killed himself. So, and I was there when Alice in Chains, and actually in the studio when Alice in Chains made their last album. I believe it was the last album with Lane. And so I'm going to kind of talk about a few little instances and, grunge history, because that's one topic I don't hit very much, and I'd like to hit it more because living there I did have more experiences. So anyway, we're gonna get into it, and we're gonna finish. Well, I'm gonna reopen. I had to buy a 4-pack of these because in the state of Utah. Anyway, so I really like this one from Proper Our Local. I'm gonna have another because I love it, and because you know what, I might clear up some whispers about what was really going on. All right, everybody. Time to grab your cocktails, get your little rocktails in your seat, kick up your feet, and let's have a little cocktails and rocktails. Cheers, big ears. Too much head, but is there such a thing as too much head? I don't think so. Okay. Excuse me. So the second time I lived in Seattle, everybody knows I moved up there from 94 to 95. Well, I had already known some, had already met Alice in Chains. The first time I met them was on Lollapalooza. It was. And Mike Inez had just started playing bass for them. Bunch of us, we had friends on the tour. Tool was playing and stuff. We had been out at this big old nightclub the night before. But I ended up having to babysit Lane the day of the show during Lollapalooza because he had a babysitter on the tour at the time. To keep him off heroin. And he needed a break apparently, and I'm like, whoa, don't leave me on the bus with him. I am not sleeping with him. I do not have to take care of this man. Because everybody knows any groupie that's sleeping with their man, that's probably the number one thing said to any woman on the road: go take care of your man. Fine. Yeah. I mean, you don't mind. You love it because you're part of this family and he's taking care of you and you're happy to take care of him. But I wasn't sleeping with him, and Lane was kind of in the back lounge, curled up, rocking back and forth while I was petting him and petting him and petting him and petting him. Yeah. Fast forward a few years later when Andrea and I were backstage at Pantera. We all know that story. Go watch the Vinnie Paul. The first Vinnie Paul video, because what people don't realize in that video is a huge part of grunge history, Alice in Chains, because that's why I was in the studio that night, because I had introduced my friend Andrea to Mikey Inez and had introduced, I was with Vinny, so we all went to the studio afterwards. We were in this little foursome. Jerry was hanging out. Jerry Cantrell was there. Just a few of us listening to Alice in Chains' last album before everybody else was going on. So if you want to hear that full story, go down. It's pretty early last year, one of my earliest videos, but it's a Vinnie Paul story, just something unexpected in it. So, excuse me. Wow, sorry about that. I kind of swallowed wrong and had to cough some of the head out. Just kidding. Anyway, So living up in Seattle, it really was like you could just be wandering around at the Pike Street Market one day and turn around and there is Chris Cornell and his at the time wife Susan Silver, and just sit around and have a conversation because they had seen me backstage, they'd seen me at the Brick, they'd seen me at the practice pads, stuff like that. So it was really, really awesome. But you know, the first time I lived there, grunge was happening. The second time I lived there in 94 to 95, grunge was on its way to death because I also lived there when Kurt Cobain killed himself. Yeah, I remember waking up that morning and just finding out, and you know what was really going on, and Courtney was coming into town and like everybody was descending down onto the Space Needle and going out to the house at Lake Washington and stuff. And you know, there's been a lot of rumors since then, and this is something I kind of want to clear up about that situation. There's a movie, I believe it's by Gus Van Sant, I believe, about Kurt Cobain. I'll put the link to it down in the description. It's The Last Days of Kurt Cobain, where I think this is closer to the story according to people that I knew who were part of that scene, who knew a lot more insiders, maybe did heroin, stuff like that. Heroin was never my drug. It wasn't my thing. You know, I'm a pot smoker and I like to have a few drinks once in a while, but that's it. So this movie, I think, is closest to Kurt's death, and because I also ran into Courtney Love leaving the Nine Inch Nails show about a week after Kurt's death, maybe right after the funeral. It was before she scattered the ashes into Puget Sound, but she was leaving the Nine Inch Nails concert. I happened to be backstage. I just somehow got caught up in the whirlwind on the way taking this big Barney to her car for Frances Bean and stuff, and she was really, really, truly heartbroken, really heartbroken, and I do not believe she had anything to do with the death. I think she was trying to make them live because they had a family and careers and lives and everything that was going great for them finally. And is Courtney Love perfect? Oh fuck no, she's a mess and a half. She's had some really great days in her life, but she's been mess most days. So anyway, I'm all caught up in that, and then running into friends. This is what I think happened with Kurt's death. He came back, and Courtney had called all their drug dealing friends. Said, "Don't sell to Kurt. I will kill you." You know, she got all Courtney on them. People think she kind of orchestrated and hired. There's some guy that came out that ended up dying years later. I don't believe his story at all, to be honest. I do not. I believe that it was the drug dealers because, and not the one, not, I think what happened is because Courtney had called all their regular drug dealers, "Don't you motherfucking sell to him," and they were scared of Courtney, so they did not. And there were these low-end trailer trash heroin dealers, like really sloggy, hanging on motherfuckers. And this movie, Gus Van Sant, The Last Days of Kurt Cobain, is really, really close to the gossip that I heard in Seattle while I was living there from people who were kind of there, or not there, but knew the story. So I think these drug dealers came out, they bought them all this shit. They were known as like the desperate heroin. Like they had shitty heroin. And I was hearing all this while this was going on, and they went out, they brought Kurt some heroin, and he's like, "Hey, so, you know, as you do, like when you go pick up weed from your dealer, you smoke some weed, you go home. You know, it's a courtesy." So they stayed, and they never went home, and I think what happened is because they had some shitty fucked up heroin, he OD'd, and then I think that they set the scene, so to speak, because these three people who were well known on the heroin scene and always part of some low-class drudgery, trying to be part of something bigger and trying to, you know, be part of the cool kid crowd. They were always kind of just shunned and looked over your shoulder at and stuff. They disappeared. Like these people would show up anywhere and everywhere to be, trying to hawk their shitty wares. And all of a sudden, right after Kurt's death, a couple days before his body was discovered, they booked the fuck out of town. They have never been seen since. Supposedly they went to Northern California to friends in San Francisco. But so living there, I got to have the first-hand knowledge of what was actually going on. And I actually believe that version of things because, like I said, those heroin dealers were never seen again in Seattle. Ever. Disappeared. And there was a lot of things missing from that house, like cash that they kept in a safe, some jewelry, a diary, I believe, some bits and pieces and stuff. There was just a lot of things missing from the house, so it makes sense to me. And living in Seattle, like I said, you have kind of a front row seat to what's going on, and you have the first-hand gossip to what was going on. So this was really cool about living in Seattle, because I got to see, it was like how people in the 80s saw butt rock on the Sunset Strip. This was the Sunset Strip of the 90s, and I was living there. So that's kind of one little thing that I got to see when I lived in Seattle that a lot of people don't know about. I mean, take your opinion on that. But also, like I said, I was there because I was backstage and introduced my friend to Mikey Inez. I was there when got to hear Alice in Chains' last album with Lane while it was being recorded, and went to that recording studio a couple other times to hear it, which was badass. And I got to see Lane again. Like I said, I took care of him on Lollapalooza for a couple of the shows because we were just hanging out on the road, and he was like just as needy. Like, he would dive into the car in the back seat. Like, if you went to his house in Queen Anne, you would knock on his door, he wouldn't come. You would slip a note through the mail slot and come back 15 minutes later to pick him up. His manager would do this. And he would dive in the back seat all scared and paranoid and in whatever heroin rabbit hole he had gone to. I'm really surprised that they actually kind of finished that album. I think if it wasn't for Jerry and Mikey and Sean really getting Lane there and getting him into the mood once he got there, it wouldn't have been done. I mean, so that was really, really awesome. But like I said, Seattle was really cool at the time. Grunge was happening. They were all still living there. So you could go down to the Brick Street and just sort of hang out and run into anybody and everybody. I mean, we knew all about the rumors. We knew Pearl Jam was happening before anybody else. They used to go by Mookie Blaylock, which was really awesome because I watched Mother Love Bone in small clubs right before and after they were signed by Atlantic while they were making that album. I'm really lucky because I've got to see so many genres of music, and not just from the front row, but from backstage, from behind the scenes, from their home turf. And grunge was a really huge, significant part, a change in rock and roll that we had not seen before. And oh my God, was it fucking awesome. Awesome, because it was such more laid back than, it was what rock and roll needed at the time. It needed to shift that facade and the glamour and the overcoated bullshit from Los Angeles to Seattle, where things were more stripped down and relaxed and bunch of pot smokers, really. So living in Seattle, I got to see all that. I got to, go to breakfast with friends, and here's Eddie Vedder showing up before anybody else knew who he was. And before I actually fucked him, that's how we actually got together. I don't really say that a lot because we had seen each other on the scene the first time in Seattle when Mother Love Bone was actually around. Excuse me, I mean after Mother Love Bone. So, and then we had seen each other in Salt Lake City and stuff. But anyway, so, yeah, so you could go out to breakfast and see Eddie Vedder, or go down to, there was this little Italian, the bistro, right under the clock, down the stairs, if you're looking at the clock, down to the left, where the guys from Queensryche would always be in. So we didn't just have the grunge guys, we had rock guys too. We had Queensryche, that's where Duff McKagan is from. So there was a couple shows that I would see Duff McKagan. I mean, living in Seattle the second time that I did was so cool because I had such a better grip on the backstage scene. And there was anybody and everybody from the backstage scene that you didn't expect there. Like I said, Nikki Sixx I saw once or twice backstage outside of a Motley Crue concert. All the local Seattle bands always, which was cool because you're mingling like through this whole trip of grunge and just being a part of something that was an awesome flash in the pan. I mean, grunge is still awesome, but are there really any killer grunge bands anymore? No. It's kind of classic rock. People may be influenced by it, but there's no new grunge bands coming out. And there's not any more Soundgarden. There's not any more Chris Cornell. There's not any more Nirvana. Things have changed so much, so I got to see it not only at the burgeoning, but in its prime, and be mixed down in it. And to hear Courtney Love while she's crying her eyes out over Kurt Cobain, and to hear the stories of why actually, and to be there when Alice in Chains made their last album, and to, like I said, be backstage at Pantera and see anybody that you just never expected to see. So it was a really awesome time, and it was still a more innocent time for us as human beings. It was before the internet, before, we were all converging. We were all actually connecting. Because that's what all music is missing these days, is that connection, because everybody's so disconnected because of the internet. So when I got to live in Seattle that second time, and it was really my first time away from my family, away from roommates, away from, all kinds of crazy stuff, and Kristen and I were breaking, so I was actually alone and creating, growing into who I am now, and growing into a different side of me that I didn't know. And I got to experience, like I said, these cool things, even though sitting in that car with Courtney Love, listening to her cry, and her putting her head on my shoulder, and me just being nice, and oh God, that type of thing. Yeah, that was interesting. She hadn't taken a shower for a few days, so she kind of stunk. I was trying to put my face in that Barney, but it had been under her arm, so it stunk too. But like I said, to be there firsthand and see all this, and I didn't go down to the Space Needle when she read the letter and stuff. I heard it on the radio, and I didn't want to go down and be crowded with all what became emo kids, with the sadness and the suicide and everything. We had had enough. We had had enough of all that. That kind of started the trend for the next few years too, as far as like Heroin Chic and the Vogue magazines and the models and everybody's attitude and so that kind of, that was the only bummer about it, because that really wasn't the vibe in Seattle at the time. It was still just so awesome and fun and collective and creative and welcoming and kickback, it was beautiful. So that's kind of a few things I got to see my second time living in Seattle. I got to experience, and when it's not there anymore either, because all those rock stars have moved away. Duff McKagan still has his place. I believe Jerry still has his place. Owen from My Sister's Machine is still there. And like Green Apple Quick Step and stuff, they're all still there. But the big rock bands, they're long gone. That scene in Seattle, long gone. I've been through so many genres of not just rock and roll and music, but of pop culture itself, that this is one of my favorite ones that I got to be knee deep in. It was so badass. Because like I said in one of my other videos, living in Seattle the second time, you could walk into Brick, this little hole-in-the-wall place with some acoustic stuff, instruments in the corner, and see Lane Stanley, and see the guy from Green Apple Quickstep, and see Jerry Cantrell with Kim Dial just hanging out and playing a couple guitars, and see their songs being written. It was so badass. So there you guys go. There was kind of a few experiences I had the second time living in Seattle that I didn't really get to talk about the second time. It was just crazy because, like I said, Kurt had just killed himself. Things were really ominous, but fun and free-spirited still. So there you go. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed my babble for the day. Just a little yonka kind of, because I did something today. I stitched a TikTok for this casting director. So wish me luck. This is kind of something I also want her to see, that I cross genres of rock and roll and of pop culture. So this is kind of why I did this video, just, another tooting my own horn, because hopefully she'll get back to me and see what we can do with this. All right, guys. So as I always say, thank you so much for all the love, all the support, all the really great friends and everything that you guys are doing to help me grow my channel. I love you guys so much. So we will see you here next time on Cocktails and Rocktails. And for that 53% that's just haunting my channel and watching, subscribe! Because I've got cool things coming when we hit 1,000 for my subscribers. Not for the people who are haunting my channel, but the subscribers. And haunting was an old Seattle word for your chick. Oh, she's my haunt because, you know, you're haunting her. She's haunting you. That type of thing. You're always hovering around each other, so my haunt. So come be my haunt, you guys. All right, we'll see you guys next time. Cheers, big ears.